Case file number 3543, written by Mad Shatter 715. The argument that summoned the sky. So, I helped raise my kid sister, and she and I were very close. We always got along. We never got into an argument. I was more of a father figure to her. That is, until she turned 18 and wanted to move across the country to be with her boyfriend in Utah. I didn't want her to leave. Instead, I wanted her to go to college in the state. The most prestigious university in our state had recently been donated to by a billionaire philanthropist who was offering a free 4-year ride to all freshman students from a low-income family. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, and I didn't want her to miss out on it. But she wanted to move to be with her boyfriend, so we argued, of course. I even tried to bargain that I would pay her rent if she would just go to college here, but she refused to change her mind, and we just argued and argued for the first time in our lives. We couldn't come to an agreement and walked away angry with each other, so I went back to my apartment. Late that night, around 4 a.m., I woke up suddenly with a horrible sinking feeling in my gut that something was terribly wrong. An impending sense of doom. I lay there for about 15 minutes. Then, my kid sister suddenly texted me. She said, "I'm really sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I hate life." I called her immediately and said, "Don't do anything stupid, please. I'm coming over right now." I ran out into the parking lot. I had a nice car at the time, a 2000 Toyota Celica GTS, and I parked it far away from everyone else so they wouldn't ding or scratch it. And right above my car, about a treetop high or so, were thousands of crows circling above my car. I've never seen anything like it before or since. It wasn't hundreds, it was thousands, and they were swooping and flying in circles over my car and crying loudly. It was epic, freaking biblical. And I'm actually choking up, almost crying right now as I type this out, remembering it. I got to my car as fast as I could and drove to my mom's house quicker than lightning. And I spent the whole day with my kid sister just cheering her up. Then I gave her my blessing that she could go to Utah with her boyfriend. Later on, I told one of my friends about what happened. She was pagan, and she explained to me that traditionally, when people see crows approaching them, it's usually seen as an ominous sign. But the truth is actually the exact opposite. Crows are guardians in the spirit world. When you see a crow, they have been sent to watch over you and protect you. So, something sent thousands of crows for my kid sister's protection that day. At least, that was my friend's take on it. All I know is what I experienced was not normal. It was the most paranormal experience I've ever seen. In most fiction and media and folktales that I see, crows are indeed portrayed more in the, if not ominous, just eerie vibe. So, to hear that they can also be guardians or omens of protection is pretty cool. Now, what could summon a flock or a murder of crows? Although that's a redundant saying, but it sounds better. What could bring them to you? Is it really just, well, your sister is in trouble or mentally disturbed and unstable and she really needs you right now? I mean, you already knew that at the point of the text from her. So the crows more presented a confirmation rather than alerting you. But that's still interesting if they are entwined or connected. But at least it's a happy ending. I'm glad your sister is safe. Yeah, she missed out on an opportunity for a higher education, but who knows? I mean, I don't have much formal education myself. I don't think I've ever revealed that, but I am an autodidact. I self-taught everything I know, pretty much. You know, homeschooled through high school, but homeschooled is a stretch. I really was just playing RuneScape, and that's how I learned English primarily, just engaging with people online. I had a certain base from my mom, who is bilingual, but my dad's mostly just French. Formal education is useful, especially as a proof that you attended college and went through the rigmarole and the bureaucracy, you could say, in the structure, the formal structure. But you can learn a lot, especially these days, completely on your own, if you have the right temperament for it. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 11 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. Hard to pick a favorite one this time. There's so many that are just very emotional. You'll see. Let's get to it. Case file number 3544, written by HungryBed2201. The most impossible talk I've ever had. I woke up this morning with this incredibly vivid memory of having a conversation with my grandmother. Not a dream, a memory. It feels as real as any actual memory I have. The problem is, my grandmother died when I was 6 years old, and this conversation referenced things about my current adult life that she couldn't possibly have known about. My job, my apartment, and relationship problems I'm dealing with right now, things that didn't exist when she was alive. In the memory, we're sitting in her kitchen, and she's giving me advice about my current situation. I can remember specific things she said, the way she laughed, and details about what she was wearing. It feels completely real, but it can't be real. She's been dead for over 20 years. I was a child when she died. She never knew me as an adult. I don't believe in the afterlife, and I'm not religious. I don't think ghosts are real, but I cannot explain this memory. It's not like a dream where things are fuzzy or weird. It's crystal clear and makes complete sense, except for the fact that it's impossible. I've been sitting here all day trying to rationalize it. I keep opening my phone, half scrolling, half thinking, even playing a few minutes of Jackpot City just to occupy my hands while my mind keeps circling back to her voice. Maybe my brain constructed the memory using things I remember about her, kind of like an AI? But why would it feel so real? Why would I remember it as if it actually happened? Why would my brain do that? So was this an implanted memory by your grandmother? Or, indeed, did your mind just fabricate this memory? Maybe it's something you needed to feel, something you needed in your life to think about, and your subconscious was aware of that, so it gave you what you needed. Our perception of reality and our memories, it's all right up here in our noggin, right? Now, how much of it is the soul versus the mind? The memory is all in the mind. The soul, how we feel, how we perceive of reality, how we use that information and the memories we have, that I think is more on a meta layer above reality and above just our brains. But that's harder to prove, and the exact line between our memories, our processing power of the biological computer we have in our noggins versus the soul, the line blurs a bit. Where exactly does one begin and the other end? Hard to say. For the collection of stories today, there are so many that involve signs from loved ones that passed away. Could this be another one? Absolutely. I try not to make firm conclusions or state things that I don't know for certain to be true. There are some things that I'm almost certain of, like quantum immortality, DOP. These are so commonplace. They're just, they are features of the universe as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of things like this that really intersect with the brain and what the brain can do on its own, I'm less certain. But I still think it's awesome just to talk about and think about. And you do have to ask yourself, well, if past loved ones can indeed come back in some form, like as an echo, which I believe is the most likely explanation that fits scientifically, just a remnant of their energy that was here. The imprint in the quantum fields of reality, still reverberating slightly, perhaps fading with time as energy goes away, dissipates, but reverting back. Why doesn't it happen all the time? Because most people have loved ones that have passed, friends, family, even distant relatives. So if they can come back and interact, why don't so many more do it? It seems rather rare and specific. Is there like a training curve where spirits have to learn how to do it? Or maybe it's only in times of great need. Maybe it only happens when people really need it. And maybe that's not always revealed in the story because, context matters, what exactly is going on in their lives. Or maybe it's a future event that we aren't even aware of, that they aren't aware of yet, and they needed this kind of information or emotional weight, emotional anchor to help them. Just totally spitballing there, but it's fun. Case file number 3545, written by Pale Ad 1142. Rabbids replicated. So ever since I was a kid, I can remember this happening to me multiple times. Basically, random objects around me will duplicate, or I will lose items and then find them in places I didn't put them, places I know I've looked before. I know this isn't just a case of a bad memory. For example, when I was a child, I had a Nintendo DS and I had a singular copy of the Raving Rabbids game. There was no other way that I could have a second copy of this. I was an only child at this point, and no other person in my household could have had this, and I didn't have any friends that had this game. One day, I woke up, and there were just randomly 2 of them in my Nintendo DS thing, stacked behind the other one. I've had many more occurrences like this, objects that I couldn't possibly have 2 of, suddenly I have 2. Even more weirdly, I will lose objects in places far, and have them reappear in my home. The strangest one was when I took a trip to Indiana and lost my pink water bottle in a conference hotel room, and I know I left it in this conference room, only to come home after the trip 2 weeks later, it appeared in my cabinet. I really tried to brush that one off and just forget it because it was so weird, but I can't. Case file number 3546, written by Kitty JJ. Love with admin access. A friend of mine, we'll call her Jay, decided to leave the world almost 4 years ago now. There was a lot of healing that had to be done by many of us to comprehend not only her choice, but our feelings about it as well. Several of us have had an abundance of signs from her since her passing. In November of 2024, I went on Snapchat and decided to take a look at my memories. For some reason, they began glitching as soon as I went to the memory section. And about 10 seconds later, a photo of Jay and me opened on its own. About a week later, I had a dream about her. I've only had one dream of her since her passing, and this would be my second. The dream was so realistic, we were just hanging out as if nothing had happened, and I remember being so confused and thinking, "You're supposed to be dead," throughout my dream. I went about my week, not thinking much of it. That Friday, a mutual friend of ours, we'll call him Joe, messaged me saying her boyfriend, we'll call him Tony, was having a fighting match that night and asked if I wanted to attend. Tony, Joe, and I have been friends for about 24 years now. Tony is the reason we met Jay. I decided to attend the show to support Tony. Jay's sister was there, we'll call her Emma, and after the match, she excitedly told everyone she could, "My little sister's boyfriend won the match!" She invited us to her home to celebrate. While at her home, after a few drinks, Emma tells us, "I had a dream about my sister this week. It was very realistic. I was looking into her hazel eyes and touching her hair." Then Tony said, "I also had a dream about her this week. It was so real, we were hanging out and talking." At that point, I was a little in shock and mentioned my dream too. Her sister just smiled while listening to us. Joe was in shock about the 3 of us having dreams about her around the same time. Her sister then begins to tell us about how Jay always sends her signs. "My little sister loves to mess with lights and technology. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I ask her for a sign, and later that day, there'll be flickering lights in my home." I told her about all my experiences, and Joe told her about his own. She smiled and said, "She's always around." We all cried together that night. About a week later, I was on the phone with my friend as I arrived home. We agreed that he would be picking me up. I got off the call, unlocked my front door, went to my room, and threw my phone and my bag on the bed. I went to the restroom, did my business, and then went back to my room to call my friend and let him know I was ready. When I opened my call log, I didn't understand. The last call made was from me to Jay while I was in the restroom. I called my friend nearly in tears again. I get so many signs from her, but signs this clear are rare. I managed to compose myself as my friend and I were on the phone, but when he arrived, he asked, "Why is the light on in the room next to yours?" "You mean the living room?" "No, the room next to yours." "Yeah, the living room." "No, the other room. The light at the far end of the other side of your house is on." He was talking about my parents' bedroom. My parents had left for Mexico a week prior. No one had been in the room since then. I remembered how her sister told me she and Jay loved to mess with lights. So, with that, I went to the room, opened the door, turned the light off, and went on with my night. She continues to watch over me, over our friends, over her family. A love that extends beyond death. So again, loved ones, they're out there. There's so many stories of that where the imprints of who people were still linger behind. To some extent, there's variation. I don't know why some people imprint more, or some people are able to interact more with the living, the mortal realm. But it's very clear that some are able to. For whatever reason that might be. Maybe it's related to quantum immortality. Maybe some people's souls, more of a fragment is left behind before they transfer. Something like that. I don't know. But I know that it must be incredible to receive these kinds of signs from people, and not just for yourself. And this story is great because so many people are experiencing it at the same time. And then if you're a spirit, if you pass away, unfortunately, and you still have some sort of conscious control over your existence as an echo here, remember, give your signs to multiple people that know you so they can all interact together and confirm it together. That's the way you want to do it. You need multiple witnesses. That is the key. Case file number 3547, written by A. Rule 22. The Poltergeist with Manners. My cousin lives 3 blocks away from me, so I go over to visit him often. He has a hat man entity that sometimes likes to wake him up by shaking his leg, or just likes to stand there and watch him sleep. Certain pictures, always the same select ones on the same 2 walls, are always cocked off half towards Jones, crooked and sideways, and I used to always write them because it bugged me, only for them to be almost sarcastically jacked sideways again in a few days. So, we are assuming it is also this hat man that took one of his boots, just completely gone like it vanished into thin air. It was so gone that he was forced to buy another pair. Of course, we looked everywhere, and months later, he walked into his bedroom and the missing boot had been placed upright on a box, as if to mock him. More recently, he discovered his belt was not on top of his work clothes. He has a routine of neatly laying them out for the next morning. Lasted just a few days, and we think it's because this time my cousin acknowledged the entity out loud and also asked him if he knew where his belt was and asked if he would please return it. He later took a nap on the couch in the living room, and when he woke up, the belt had been laid over the back of the couch where he would see it when he woke up. Note, my cousin is a tidy bachelor and minimalist. There is no chance anything gets lost in the fray at his place, because there's never anything out of the place or messy. Also a creature of habit that hangs up his keys, lines up his shoes, etc. Case file number 3548, written by Dragonfly678. The End of the World, before it got trendy. I need to get this off my chest. It's been 11 years, and with everything happening in the world right now, especially what we've seen at the recent world events, I'm starting to believe I might have had a series of premonition dreams. What I'm about to share might sound crazy, but I swear on everything, I'm telling the truth, sincerely and wholeheartedly. The year was 2014. The year I fully embraced spiritualism. I could go deep into meditation, and I often felt the presence of entities around me. I've felt them since I was a kid, but this year it became intense. I experienced a series of unexplainable events. One of the biggest, a strange sighting in the sky that completely changed my life. 3 days after the sighting, I received a book called Mysteries of the Universe through a magazine, one I used to subscribe to. I never ordered this book. After that, the dreams started. Important note, I don't drink, smoke, or use any drugs. These experiences were had in a completely clear state of mind. The dreams. Dream 1, late 2014. I wake up in the dream, standing next to my mother, who's unwell in bed. We're in an unfamiliar flat, high up, with a huge window showing the entire city. It feels emotionally familiar, but I don't recognize the place. Suddenly, white L-shaped flying ships appear in the sky. Then more follow. Within seconds, they start launching missiles across the city. Black ships arrive, fighting the white ones. It becomes an all-out war. One missile hits our building. I feel everything. Explosions, vibration, chaos, losing my mom in the debris. I'm still alive, but I realize my arm is gone. The pain is so real, I wake up screaming. My real arm felt like it was on fire. I looked at it and it was red hot. Note, the city in the dream was nothing like anywhere I've ever lived or known. Dream 2, early 2015. I wake up in the dream wearing military-style clothes. I'm alone, standing on a road surrounded by dense forest. Suddenly, military tanks appear in the distance. I ran into the woods to hide. While there, I stumble across a hidden camp. I see flags of Japan, Russia, Italy, and 2 more I can't recall. It looked like a coalition of forces. I was exhausted and debated asking for help. I wake up before I do. Dream 3, mid-2015. This one felt different. I wasn't in the world. I was observing it, like a third-person view of Earth. I could see a world trying to make sense of the new reality. Massive displacement of people. Governments tried to unite to save lives, while others were still fighting over territory. I clearly remember Brazil being one of the nations in turmoil. Then, a powerful presence surrounds me. I feel peace and light. I see a floating golden-green sphere about 6 feet tall with a belt-like ring around it. It felt alive. I look at it and ask, why? Mentally, it speaks to me. Humans, love. I reply, I don't understand. It says again, humans, love. Must remember the origin. I woke up in tears. I felt like I had just encountered something divine. It was the most beautiful, powerful feeling I've ever had. Fast forward to 2025. With what's happening now, the wars, the military tech, the strange anomalies, these dreams have come flooding back. But what pushed me to finally share this were 2 things. 1. I saw images of the B-2 bombers the US is deploying, and they look exactly like the black ships from the first dream. 2. A TikTok video popped up about the Buga sphere found in Colombia. It might not be true, but the resemblance to the golden sphere in my 3rd dream sent chills down my spine. After those dreams, I backed away from spirituality. Everything felt too real, too intense. I was scared. But maybe it's time I stop ignoring it. Maybe this is important. So I think this could indeed be premonitions, but not necessarily for our reality. When you go into the dream world, I think we're able to connect into the multiverse realm. So some of the odd dreams we go through, a lot of those are the brain trying to make sense of the day. Our brains reorganize our memories when we sleep. They reconfigure synaptic pathways, things that really were important to you or that the subconscious believes will become valuable later on. They are effectively tucked away into long-term memory. If you learn something and you think about it a lot during the day and then you go to bed, the next day, it's no longer in your short-term memory, it's in your long-term memory. So it'll be very difficult to forget, especially this is the key. If you want to remember something, think about it long the day you learn it, go to bed, sleep well, and then occasionally think about it again here and there. And then that'll refresh the access pathway. It's like having a road that is well paved, but over time, if it's not maintained, it's harder to access the cabin, so to speak, if the cabin is the memory. But okay, going back, I think when we're sleeping, we don't just have access to our own memories. It's like swimming in the multiverse ocean. We can take glimpses or pieces of different worlds that are very odd, very unlike ours. Or in some cases, there's parallels, but we're talking about the entire breadth of the multiverse ocean. It's quite extensive. There's almost infinite variation. So it's not like quantum immortality where you're zipped to a different universe, but one that is almost perfectly identical to where we exist in now. Now this one is just way wacky out there. Things we couldn't even possibly imagine. And so that's why some of our dreams can be really odd. So are your premonitions useless for our reality? I don't think so. I think there still are parallels, like you talking about the B-2 bombers. I mean, is the same kind of thing going to happen here where aliens go to war over our cities? Probably not. I mean, I hope not. But one interesting point about that is it is indeed what I suspect, that there's not just one alien species here observing us, but multiple. Perhaps some are hostile and some aren't, and the non-hostile ones probably are trying to protect us. I would hope. So let's just hope that they keep the hostile ones at bay. Case file number 3549, written by Bortak C34. A prayer, then full speed. This is something my grandmother experienced when she was younger. It's been told in our family for as long as I can remember. I've heard the same details more than once, both from my grandmother herself and from my mother. At the time, my grandmother was in her early 30s and living in a village. She had 2 small children. One evening, they were coming back from the fields using a wooden cart pulled by 2 oxen. It was already getting dark and they were late. Because the kids were small and tired, she chose a shorter route home that passed next to the village cemetery. When they reached the area near the cemetery, the oxen suddenly stopped. She tried everything she could think of, but the animals just wouldn't move. She always said they were soaked in sweat and breathing hard, like they were struggling against something, but at the same time, they were completely stuck in place. She got scared and started praying. Just the prayer she knew by heart. After that, the oxen suddenly started moving again, but not slowly. They took off at full speed, like they were trying to get away from something behind them. That's when my mother's sibling, who was very young at the time, started crying and screaming. They were pointing behind the cart and saying there was someone there, a bald person behind them. My grandmother turned around and said she saw something too. She described it as short, with a strange face. She always said she couldn't really tell if it was human or not, only that it didn't look right. They didn't stop until they got home. My grandmother never told this like a ghost story and never tried to make it dramatic. She just said that this is what happened, and after that night, she never used that cemetery path again. The story has stayed the same in our family over the years. Nobody ever claimed to know what it was, just that something strange happened that night. Case file number 3550, written by Melodic Radish 711, a dedicated piece of obsolete tech. About 20 years ago, my then-husband and I went to Savannah for several days. This was in the days of flip phones. We did all the usual things, seeing Civil War sites, going to restaurants and clubs, shopping and so on. At some point, he lost his cell phone. We were in our hotel room when he realized he couldn't find it. We looked everywhere, turned the room inside and out looking for it, emptied suitcases, went through all of our clothes and pockets. Then we left the hotel and retraced our steps, trying to locate it. We called places we had been to see if someone had turned it in. Finally, we just gave up and eventually returned home. Just went on about our lives. About 2 years passed. One night, he and I were in our house in separate rooms doing whatever. Suddenly, he called me from one of the extra bedrooms. I went to see what he wanted, and when I saw him, he looked really spooked. He pointed to an object in the middle of the floor. It was an old flip phone. I didn't recognize it at first, but then I realized it was that cell phone he had lost in Savannah. I thought he was messing with me, but he really was shaken up. There was nothing in the room, such as coats or suitcases, that he could have come from. It was a guest bedroom with a bed and desk in it. The battery was long dead, and we no longer had the right thing to charge it with. The technology had long since moved on. Case file number 3551, written by Anonymous. Fetch, but make it existential. There's a small, fenced area near my house where the residents of an attached condo development intend to bring their dogs to go to the bathroom. I like to bring my dog to this area on our walks and toss the ball around for her a little, get some extra exercise, and let her use the water fountain. We buy her these bright orange rubber tennis balls made by the brand Chuck It. If you have dogs in your life, you are almost certainly familiar with these types of balls. Late last year, we were preparing to leave, and I went over to her ball on the ground and gave it a casual little kick so that she would chase it and pick it up. When I did this, the ball rolled a couple feet towards the chain link fence and then vanished before my eyes. I was not too far from the spot where it disappeared and could see it very clearly. I was so confused and genuinely a little unsettled. I searched the entire area for any hole it could have fallen into or bush that could have been obscuring it. Unlikely, since it was not near any bushes when it vanished, and came up completely empty-handed. It seriously creeped me out. How did a bright neon orange ball disappear on a patch of deep green grass while I was looking at it? I went back a handful of times to search again after that and never found any sign of what happened to that ball. The funny thing is the week before, I had lost another ball in the same location, though I didn't see it with my own eyes that time. I was preoccupied on my phone trying to pick up an album to listen to for the walk back to the house when I noticed my dog no longer had the ball she was looking for. Sometimes she accidentally kicks it under the fence and it rolls down into the street. No big deal. But when I went to retrieve it for her, I couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't really make a thing of it at the time, but after seeing a ball vanish in the same location before my eyes the next week, I was thoroughly creeped out. Case file number 3552, written by Trail of Hope. A Fiddle Bridge Too Far. A few years back, I went to a medium who speaks to those who have passed over. During our session, he told me my grandfather was there. He even gave me his name. He said that my grandfather wanted me to go to bingo, something he did often when he was alive, and that he would make it worth my while. I hadn't been to bingo in years, but the medium told me my grandfather would give me a sign when it was time to go. One evening, while washing dishes, a local radio commercial played about a big bingo event in my hometown, about an hour away. Something inside me clicked. I told my husband, "Let's go to my parents' house. You can hang out with the boys while I go play bingo." So off we went. At this bingo, I won $200. When I got back to my parents' house, I announced my win. Everyone was excited and wanted to see the money. Then it happened. A sudden freezing breeze swept through me. I asked everyone, "Did you feel that?" Nobody responded. I asked again, louder, still nothing. It was as if I didn't exist. The cold wrapped around me. A third, fourth attempt, and still silence. Then it stopped. Everyone looked at me normally. I had asked everyone if they had heard me loudly asking them if they had felt how cold it just got, and they all said, "No, you weren't talking." I was like, what the? I reached into my pocket to pull out the folded bills. Smack dab in the middle of the 1020s was a bridge from a fiddle. The bingo attendant who gave me the winnings counted the money out to me, and I had counted the money myself before putting it in my pocket. There had been no fiddle bridge in there. Here's a truly chilling part. My grandfather was a well-known fiddle player in our hometown. My father kept his father's 2 fiddles under lock and key, always warning us and later my boys never to touch them. I showed the bridge to everyone. My father's face went pale. He went to check the fiddles. One of them was missing its bridge. I cannot explain how that bridge ended up folded into my bingo winnings. All I know is this. During those seconds, when I felt the freezing breeze, my grandfather had found a way to say, "Yeah, this was my doing. You're welcome." Case file number 3553, written by Lumpy Cod 6792. Orange eyes don't blink. So we were at this lake house with some friends, and my wife was at home all night by herself. While we were at the bar drinking a little bit, I didn't have much to drink. I had like 1 or 2 beers. I got back to the house and I lay down. It was pretty much pitch black in this room, but I could just see the silhouette of her body while she was laying down. I lay down next to her and we were face to face, but I couldn't even really make out the details of her face, it was too dark. But I noticed it kind of looked like she was sitting up. And so I just said, "Hey, why are you sitting up? Or, what are you doing?" And I heard her voice come from right in front of me, not where it would have been if she was sitting up. So it spooked me in of itself. And I just kept staring at this thing. And the more I stared at it, the more I realized that it wasn't right above her. It was on the edge of the bed, standing and hovering over the bed. And it was this black figure that was like 8 or 9 feet tall. And as I stared at it, it slowly started to get a lot closer to me. But it was just its face. It looked like its face was extending out to stare at me. It ended up getting to the point where it was inches from my face, and I just sat there. It was like shook, frozen in space. I couldn't move, and I was just staring face to face with this black figure. It had these little bitty orange bead eyes with tiny black pupils, and I'll explain the rest of what it looked like once I explain the rest of the story. But my wife, she looks at me and she's like, "What? Did you see something?" And I froze and I just said, "I don't want to say anything." And she was like, "You need to tell me if you saw something." And I said I did, but I didn't tell her what, and we sat there for a minute. I was just like, "Don't freak out, just relax and go to bed." And she couldn't, she was so scared. So we both just ran out into the main area where all of her friends were, and so we get out in the main area, and she's like, spooked. She's like, "Guys, I think Jackson, me, just saw something weird, and I need to tell you all about the things that I was seeing while you guys were at the bar." And she starts explaining. She's like, "It felt like somebody was standing outside the door, because she could see light, but it looked like the shadow of 2 feet just standing outside the door for hours. And then she would fall asleep and wake up, and it would be gone. She could see a little bit of light underneath the door, so she said she saw this shadow figure crawling on the ground, walking towards her on all fours, and when she told me the details of what this thing looked like, I froze. She said this thing had little orange eyes and a huge smile with these jagged teeth. And the reason why I froze is because that was exactly what I saw, and I never told her that before she told them. It was the spookiest feeling I'd ever experienced. Well, while she's telling them, they kind of start laughing a little, thinking she's joking, but I was not laughing. I was freaked out. I didn't even want to talk, just staring at her, blank space. Absolutely freaked by what she just said. I just felt like what I saw just defied everything I ever believed, right? I still hadn't told her that's what I saw, because what happened next happened so fast. Well, while she's sitting there talking, I shut the door to that bedroom when we got out of there. But while everybody was sitting there talking, we all heard something drop and fall onto the floor in that room. And there were wood floors all throughout the house. And so we walked through the bedroom to kind of see what it was, and there was nothing on the floor. Like nothing. There wasn't any trash, there wasn't a coin, there wasn't anything that was on the floor. The floor was spotless. So that was the only thing that we saw. So what the hell caused the noise? Later on, we found out that there was an Indian burial site on the backyard of this house, with tombstones still there in this little bitty fenced out area that was directly outside this window that we stayed in. So I'm not sure if there's any kind of folklore about those types of spirits, demons, ghosts, or whatever they were. But still, to this day, this was about 6 months ago. I've yet to find any information on it. It still scares us to hell and back. I mean, I'm still getting chills just writing this out, and I haven't really spoken about it to anyone else outside of our friend group. Now time for the jokes of the day. Some jerk stole my thesaurus like a jerk. What a jerk. Not much variation there without his book. I went to a hotel to ask for a room, and the lady at the counter told me that all the rooms were full. I told her that my name was Improvement, and there's always a room for improvement. And he's not wrong. He's got her there. Police have confirmed that a man who fell from the 25th floor of a nightclub is not a bouncer. Splat. He's a splatter. My wife and I discussed and jointly agreed that we don't want children. We're telling them tonight. Oh. NASA is going to launch a rocket to say sorry to the aliens. It's called Apollo G. Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Tell them bye, Dave. Bye.